Hello there, it's Christian Younggren with Kaizen Automotive Consulting, bringing you more best automotive practices. Now normally, when it comes to closing car deals, a huge part of a salesperson's success is going to be in their ability to be able to explain the why behind how their dealership arrived at the figures for the car, the trade, payments, and down payments. Now normally you'd think learning how to justify a dealership's offer could take years to master. In some cases it does. But today you're going to learn how maybe the difference between a sale and your guest walking is just simply taking advantage of an easy, plain word that we use every day. Stick around and I'll tell you all about it. Now if this is your first time to our channel and you want to improve your automotive selling skills, learn how to use psychology to close more car deals, and receive unbiased reviews on dealership product and service companies, make sure you subscribe and then turn on that bell so you never miss out on learning anything new. Alright then, let's get to work. Now it was back in 1977 when Harvard psychologist Ellen Langer and her team conducted a landmark experiment on the power of justification when you use the word because at the start of the justification. What later became known as the copy machine study, Langer and her team wanted to measure how using the word because would possibly increase the compliance to a stranger's request for a favor. Now to study this, the researchers had to shut down all but one of Harvard University's library copy machines to create long lines so students would have to wait their turn in line for the copy machine. Then the researchers who posed as students, when they'd spot somebody waiting in line at the copy machine, they'd walk over with the goal of cutting in line. And then the researcher would look the unknowing research subject right in the eye and they'd ask them one of three questions. Now the first question actually contained only the request, and the experimenter would say, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine?" Now question 2, it contained actually the request and the real reason. And so the experimenter would say, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine? Because I'm in a rush." Now interestingly, question 3 contained the request and a fake excuse. They'd say, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine? Because I need to make copies." Now you'll notice that the third question doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? I mean, using the word because I have to make copies, isn't that really sort of a lame reason for wanting to cut in line? I mean, after all, isn't everyone waiting for the copy machine needing to make copies? So the phrase really doesn't have a legitimate or a good reason, but the researcher was trying to use it to see if it would justify them cutting in line and allowing them to do that anyway. Now surprisingly, this senseless reason performed exceptionally well. When the researchers analyzed all the data, here's what they ended up finding out. Question number 1 that contained just a request, 60% of the time the people let the researcher skip in line. Question 2 that contained the request and the real reason, 94% of the time the people let the researcher skip in line. Now here's the crazy part. Question number 3 that contained the request and then the fake reason, 93% of the time the people let the researcher jump in line. So what's going on here? Langer's copy machine study implies that when us as humans simply hear the word because, it prompts our brains to relax a little bit, just for a moment, predicting a justification is coming up next. And because our human brains are hardwired to look for shortcuts instead of using energy to listen and think, if the request is small enough, and then followed with a because, we likely agree without really processing the words that come after the word because. In his best-selling book, Influence, Robert Cialdini explained the phenomenon by saying this: "A well-known human principle of behavior says that when we make a request to someone, we'll be much more successful if we provide a reason. People simply have to have reasons for what they do. So much so that in some cases, we'll accept irrational requests when they're followed after the word because." Now when it comes to car negotiations, how can we leverage this information? Well, I think it all starts with the word because. I mean, as we saw in the study, at times just hearing that word because is enough to gain acceptance. However, in the world of high-ticket items like a car sale, I think we put ourselves in a much better position for that yes if we use the because and then we justified it with a logical explanation. And then if we take the because and the logic-based explanation and then we provide some third-party proof, now we're talking. Let's take a look at this idea in action by using 3 different levels of because justification when a guest objects to, say for instance, the trade value offer. Now, in the first one, let's say our guest says to us, hey, I think my car is worth more. I mean, why am I only getting $10,500 for my trade? So in this first one, again, let's just use the because, and that's about it. So it would go something like, hey, I can appreciate that you'd like to get more for your trade. I mean, I get that. Now, we offered you $10,500 because that's what the fair market value is for your car. Now, the second one, let's add a bit more depth to it. Let's add a little more to the because. So in this next one, when the guest objects, they'd say something like, well, hey, I think my car's worth a little bit more. I mean, why am I only getting $10,500 for the trade? Then the salesperson would just say, hey, I can appreciate you'd like to get more for the trade. I mean, I get that. No, we offered you $10,500 for your car because based on my management team's research, that is the fair market value for your car. Now that wasn't too bad, but I know we can do better. So let's check out what happens in this third example when we use because, we justify the because with good logic, and then we back it all up with third-party proof. So our guest may say, hey, you know what? I think the car's worth more. I'm only getting $10,500 for the trade. Come on. And then you'd say, hey, I appreciate that you'd like to get more for the vehicle. I mean, I get it. And you know what? We offered you the $10,500 for your car because that's based on my management team's research. That is the fair market value for your car. But what I'd like to do is take a moment, if I could, and show you the research my management team does to arrive at the fair market value for your vehicle. Is that okay? Guest says, yes, that's exactly what I'd like to have you do. That's kind of what I'm getting at. I mean, how do you guys come up with $10,500? And then you'd say this. Have you ever heard of the Odessa or the Mannheim Auto Auction? And your guest will say his name's Joe. Joe says, no, maybe, I'm not sure. What are you talking about? And they say, well, they're 2 of the largest auto auctions in the United States. Now, we still attend these in person sometimes. However, we attend them virtually almost every single day. So what our management team does when they get a vehicle in here to look at like yours is they just go and look and see what they can buy a vehicle like yours from at the auto auction, right? I mean, it makes sense. So here's how they do it. Now the first thing they do, number 1, is they enter in a 17-digit vehicle identification number to the auction website. And that way they've got the correct year, make, model, and probably the most important, the trim package, like the platinum package that you're looking at. Second, they enter in the exact miles, because obviously even a fluctuation of a small amount can make a difference in the value. Now finally, they input the condition into the auction website. Now speaking of condition, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being your vehicle looks like it is ready to be driven off a showroom, and 1 being that it's complete junk, where would you rank the condition of your vehicle at today? Guest says 7. You smile and say, really? That's right where we ranked it at too. Now, after they enter all this information into the auction website, what it did was it showed us vehicles like yours that we could buy at the auto auction that had a value with a 7 rating. And the value it gave us on vehicles like that was $10,000, which is actually $500 less than we're offering for yours. So unless I'm missing something, this is the fair market value for your vehicle. Now, my manager did print off the auction reports, so if you like, I can review those with you. And so let's say we review them with our guest for a moment and they look them over, and then we would just close. We'd say, you know what, Joe? It seems like this really is the perfect car for you. I mean, what do you say we put all this shopping behind you and we get you out of here so that way you can start using the rest of your day to enjoy this new vehicle? Did you want to get a Pepsi, a water, or you want another coffee while we go ahead and wrap up the paperwork? Well, if your guest picks coffee, start writing it up. Now we're talking. That third example hit the justification trifecta. I mean, we used because to justify our figures. Secondly, our justification was explained in a logical, understandable manner that made a lot of sense. And then third, we backed it up with third-party proof. We showed them the auction reports and reviewed those with them. In the end, being a world-class closer really comes down to understanding that you need to have more answers to your guest's buying objections than your guest has buying objections. That's why you ought to check out this free video series that I'm going to leave on overcoming car buying objections during negotiations. You'll see it right up here above. Now, speaking of negotiations, if you'd like to learn how much you could start your offers out at, because a lot of people ask me, where do I start? Or where do I stop? What do I do? How do I negotiate? What are the increments? Check out this video coming up on the Ackerman negotiation method. I think you'll really like it. It's one of my most watched videos.